Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it. And on this week's episode, healing from toxic positivity.
Oh, yeah. That whole good vibes only.
Yeah, I had some problems with that originally.
Yeah, I had to rethink any kind of signs that they would put out about that. Like, I'm not putting that on my property, no.
But first, let's get into these healing cards. Skin
Okay.
deep. You want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay, I'll go first. Let's say, if you could have something of mine, what would it be and why?
I would say probably your fearlessness. Like when it comes to like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to do this, like kind of, especially physical fearlessness. I wouldn't mind having some of that.
I see you as going first on a lot of other things that aren't physical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's okay.
I'll go into the emotional fearlessness.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think that the physicality is something that you're
I think it's
less likely to do first?
I think I became more or less likely after working as a flight nurse and seeing too many of the ways it went wrong.
Yeah.
And so even though it's like something I maybe would have wanted to try, there's already like this kind of story in my head about, oh, remember that time you had to pick someone up? And so it limits how much risk I want to take physically.
It brings to mind a word I asked you about: vicarious trauma, secondary trauma.
Secondary trauma.
Yeah, and how it can affect you.
Yeah,
And that's
it is secondary trauma.
Okay. What's your question?
Okay, my question is, if there was a movie about our family, which actors would play us?
Oh, man. Who would play you? I think, I don't know, maybe because I'm watching Stranger Things again, Winona Ryder would be you.
She's a little quirky. I could do that. She could.
But she kicks ass in the same time. Yep. She definitely can figure shit out.
Or who would play you?
I don't know. Who would you think would play me? It's hard to say me.
Robert Downey Jr.
Okay. Why? But why?
He's quirky, and he's funny, but he's strong, but he can be vulnerable, but he can laugh at himself.
Oh, yeah. Somebody once told me, like, you act like you remind me of Chris Pratt for some reason. Like
I think that's, that's
imitating
that
people
same type of humor. I could see Chris Pratt totally. I could totally see that. Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
I just ran that through in my head. I saw the movie trailer right now.
All right. So let's get into this topic: healing from toxic positivity. So what comes up for you on this one? I know you talked about like you not wanting to put up signs that were too positive on the property.
Well, things like, it's not even that it's too positive. It's just things that say, like, specifically, like the term that makes me think about it is good vibes only. And that's like a t-shirt everybody would wear. And for a while, I was like, yeah, good vibes only. I only want, people who show up with good vibes or any of that. And then I started to realize, like, that's really alienating all other emotion to some degree. And it's like you're kind of being told to just stay positive when maybe all you want to do is be heard. And so that kind of, it just like increases the need to suppress emotions. And I think, with everything I've been taught about dealing with trauma or, regulating your nervous system, there really is no place to suppress your emotions. And when you have that, like, hey, just stay positive,
Yeah.
If you're feeling down and out or you're having a problem and somebody says, you know what, you just got to focus on the positive.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, but what do I do with all this other stuff that I'm feeling?
Well, it brings to me, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about a time where we were at the dinner table and I had a particularly bad day and I was trying to stay in my positive vibes. And Logan, one of my boys, decided he had something on his heart and he wanted to express, and it was very negative. And I was like, hey, we're not going to do this right now. This is the dinner table, and I don't want any negativity right now. You can see him shut down.
Yeah.
And he was like, see, I never can be heard. I don't have a voice at this table or at this house.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I felt so terrible because I was like, I just want to be positive right now, but everybody wants to be heard. you know?
Yeah.
And so at that point I was trying to just be in my positive vibes and not let anybody bring me down. But
Yep.
that can have, you know, a secondary effect to somebody else, you know, if you're not allowing them to be heard in their moment, because whatever issues I was having, I have to allow and have compassion for other people to have theirs also.
Yeah.
And that being positive in that moment completely kind of just pushed him down.
It just dismissed it.
Yeah, I could see how it totally affected him in a negative way.
Like you're just asking someone to dismiss their negative emotion, even though that's what's happening.
Yeah, you're not allowed to have that right now because my feelings are more important than yours.
Yeah, I think maybe there is like a fine line, right? Because if you're, what I think about is like if you're in a group of people and all, you know, everybody is just constantly complaining.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. It's like everybody needs an opportunity to be able to vent and let those negative emotions out. But I think that there needs to be maybe an intention with like, I need to just get this out. I need to move through it. And maybe you can provide, you know, help if it's being asked for. But just allow somebody to express their emotion.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the opposite, like the thing that wouldn't be helpful, in which I see, and I have done in the past, and many people do, is like, let me tell you this negative thing that I have, right? Or I'm listening to the negative thing that you have. You know what? Let me tell you about a negative thing that happened to me too. Well, then now we're just like
competitive, yeah.
And we're just in this loop. It's this kind of like commiserating. So I think there's a difference between commiserating and that just being like the whole, you know,
there's no healing there.
Experience. Yeah. It's just
revving.
Let's just connect on something that's really negative as opposed to, let me, you know, provide the space for you to hear you out and let you talk about what's going on for you. But it doesn't mean I have to then continue the negative feedback.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's different from shutting someone down and saying, you know what, there's no room for that. You just need to stay focused on the positive.
Yeah.
As opposed to, oh yeah, that really must have sucked. Like, and I can imagine how hard that is.
Yeah.
You know, and instead just allowing them to let that out. Because everything we talk about with breath work or healing talks about how, you know, emotion is energy in motion. So emotion can be, you know, a number of things: fear, guilt, shame,
anger,
ecstasy, joy, whatever.
Yeah.
But it wants to move. That emotion wants to move. It wants to be expressed. And once it does, it really doesn't need to hang on. It's almost like when you let somebody talk about something that was really hard for them or traumatic for them. Sometimes the more they're able to just express it, it almost starts to bleed it out so that a lot of the emotion or the activation around it starts to bleed out. It starts to kind of lessen.
Yeah, just talking about it. Being able to get it out. Yeah, releasing that.
Yeah, absolutely. There is something to that, to letting someone just talk about what's happened, provide a space for them to do that. But what we're talking about here is where we're inclined to just shut them down and say, you know what, let's just go with good vibes only, you know?
Well, one thing that I, you know, before I knew about kind of being aware in, you know, having an awareness and some of the cuckoo-ness of you and Armando was kind of like, oh, she's just happy. Everything's positive and nothing really affects her. And you kind of looking, before I knew what it was, I was just making a pure judgment of like, oh, nothing affects her. Everything's perfect. She just lets things, you know, roll off of her. But that's not really what it was.
No.
What
do you think it was now?
Well, now it's opening space.
Yeah.
And active listening that we talk about a lot, and just hearing what's going on and allowing that person to have a voice and to be heard. You know, that's what I think it is now.
Yeah.
But there was a judgment about being woo-woo and
it's all good vibes only.
Hippie,
it's all
and everything's good and how could they not be mad about this? How can they not be mad? It's not about not being mad. It's about reacting different or responding different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's definitely that. And I think that probably in our day-to-day lives with Armando and I, we are processing, we are talking about things that bothered us during the day. Like, we're not like, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, if Armando's had a hard day or if I did, we can give each other the space to be like, all right, oh yeah, that must have been difficult, or I can see why that was frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, but we don't like take it as an opportunity to just harp on it, well on it, like make it bigger than it even is. But also just being able to express that way doesn't leave me carrying it around.
Yeah.
You know, or just in a reactive mode constantly because I'm stressed.
Yeah.
Because all of that does affect your body.
Yeah.
I mean, there's science that talks about how, suppressing negative, emotions like sadness or anger or fear, it might feel like a quick fix to just suppress it, but you're actually creating a physiological response in your body that leads to more inflammation, cortisol, all of that.
You're storing those
storing
implicit
it.
memories in your fascia of your body.
Yeah. You're
Creates
actually changing your
tension.
chemistry,
Yeah.
by holding on to anger and stress and all of that. So it's not just this woo thing about you should just stay positive and, never talk about this or, it's not that. It's that this is how it affects your body on a physiological level, on a physical level, and your mind, this holding all of that in can lead to depression, anger, anxiety that is expressed in a way that probably isn't healthy.
Well, yeah, I think I talked about this before, but Logan, my son, had come to me and was, having some conflict at school and was talking about he was very negative about what was going on and describing things in detail. And so I went into my positivity, son, you got to do this and that. And I understand where you're coming from, but you need to, and he was like, Dad, can I ask you a question? And I said, yeah, well, go ahead, bud. And he's like, I can't really vent to the people at school. And right now I just need you to listen. I need someplace to vent. Can you just hear me out? And that just really,
wow.
it shook me. I was like, whoa, I need to shut off dad mode.
Yeah.
And really open a space for him and just hear him. And
yay for him for being able to say, this is what I need.
Yeah. And that was shutting down that toxic positivity. I think that specifically was the moment. And as I listened to him talk, he was able to, I seen him voice things out and was working things out as he was speaking. And by the end of it, all the stuff that he planned to do was better than what I would have told him to do. He just needed the space to kind of work it out and somebody to hear it.
Yeah.
And kind of an affirmation, if you will.
Yep.
By the end of it, I was like, wow, that was so powerful and such a learning moment as a dad. Because, I come from this place of like, oh, I got to fix everything. I got to protect him from everything. I really got to keep, all of this, keep him positive and not let things get him down. I don't want him to be depressed and all these things. But it's not a good thing to be always, even Gandhi or the Dalai Lama is not 100% of the time positive, and everybody has their moments.
Yeah.
Because I forget what it's called. It's like a positive stress, because stress, without that stress, there's no reaction in our body to create some kind of change or healing.
Right.
So just recognizing what that is and allowing the space for it is probably the most important.
Yeah. The other thing that I found is that what they're talking about is pain as being a signal. Right. And there was this statement about, imagine if you were told to ignore a warning signal in your car. It wouldn't fix the problem. On. You can't just put a piece of black tape over your check engine light.
I've done that. I've literally done that.
So if you were going to ignore your check engine light, it would just hide it, or you just wouldn't look at it. Our emotions work in a similar way. So that pain or whatever's going on, maybe anger has its place. Anger is one of the best ways as a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
Right? Because it can tell you that something is not right.
Yeah.
Something is not right with you. And maybe there is a boundary that needs to be set, or maybe there's a conversation that needs to be had. And maybe through that conversation, instead of a blow up, but being able to manage anger in a healthy way and say, this is upsetting to me, that maybe change could come from it. But the opposite is just kind of putting in your body or just suppressing it. And then you're always feeling like you're in a fight or flight.
Yeah,
right?
It's called deferred maintenance. You can't defer.
You can't defer. Then the whole engine goes. Like if you would have just checked, taking care of the problem in the first place. Yeah,
because usually a small problem incrementally gets bigger and bigger and becomes a really big problem. If you would have handled it, right away or as soon as you got the sign, you could save yourself a lot of time and headache.
Yeah, emotional pain is the signal to make us change. And we just ignore emotional pain, then we're not changing. And we're just starting to maybe build resentment or whatever that is. And physically, it's not good for your body. So there's just so many reasons to just be able to express what you're feeling in the moment that you're feeling it. And so I think having this conversation is both for us as listeners and for us as, human beings. Because life is going to life you. It's going to life you. Sometimes harder than others.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to move through whatever is happening in a way that is, I don't know, maybe changing what's happening or being able to express it in a way that deepens your relationships, or just lets you show up more fully, right? Because being able to hold that space within yourself and being able to express emotions in the moment that you're having them leaves you more room to be able to do that for someone else.
And, a lot of times, if you compare it to like a car thing, once you do it, you're like, oh, why didn't I do that earlier? It was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be this big thing. And then you do it, you're like, oh,
it was just that.
I should have just got it taken care of. Why didn't I?
It was just the windshield wiper fluid.
And so the more we work on it, yeah, exactly. The more we work on it, the easier it becomes to kind of handle these conflicts. And as they come up, giving ourselves some compassion and some grace.
Yeah.
Some space to move.
Yeah.
Because that fear of missing out and that anxiety of like, I got to fix this or, sometimes.
Yeah. And then it's just this like ticking time bomb in your head that you got to go do this. You got to go do that.
Oh, it creates anxiety and sleeplessness, especially for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I thought this was something that I had to call myself out on early on. I mean, especially we have Serenity Cove and there's a lot of great things that happen here. And we do want, like we talk about vibration and, we want people to show up in a good attitude but actually, no, I actually want you to come and bring the stuff that you're trying to work through and leave lighter,
Yeah.
And so that, I don't know, that for me was like, yeah, that's definitely not a motto here is, good vibes only.
Yeah.
And hey, we don't talk about that. Let's just talk about all the good things that we feel.
That stuff's all in the past,
yeah,
bro. Don't even worry
I'm like
about
opposite now. Now when I see somebody triggered, I'm like, ooh, do you want to go into that?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I don't want to go into that. No, but I think there's a treasure.
There.
There's a treasure there.
What? A treasure? I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, I see your toxicity as like an opportunity, or whatever this anger or this like sadness is. It's like that's something to unlock because there's something really great there could be something really great on the other side. It may be, to change something, or it may be just a feeling of like, I feel so much lighter.
Well, I mean, there's probably something to the fact that it's like, oh, I'm going to go see Lena. Oh, she's going to pull something out of me.
I
like
get a lot of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to her. She's going to make me look at all my stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I get that sometimes too. It's almost like, Noel's all in his feelings and he's tapped into his emotions and he's cueing into whatever I'm thinking, looking at patterns, and they don't want to be psychoanalyzed. It's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do.
No, we just want you to let that shift go.
Quite literally.
Yeah. The other thing about anger, that I think that's something that sometimes we try to avoid feeling, or you almost feel, I don't know, anger's misunderstood, I think, on some levels. And I think there's almost like this shame in being angry sometimes, like, I can't believe I got angry. And it's like, I think that it's a vital emotion, It
is.
It signals boundaries. It signals when something that is important to us has been violated, right? And allowing ourselves to feel that and understand it can help us stand up for ourselves, and set the boundaries we need. And when we're doing it in a way that maybe is even in the moment or in a way that you feel empowered to do so, it may not be as explosive.
Kind of the beach ball effect kind of thing, holding the beach ball.
Yeah, holding the beach ball.
Hold it underwater. And if you don't, let it out on your own,
just boom.
It's going to blow out.
Hit you in the
You're
face.
Get tired of holding it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being able to go, man, I feel angry. This is making me angry. And ask yourself, why am I angry? What is this about? And then being able to express it. When you're able to do that, there's a possibility for change.
It's pretty scary to do that, though. I mean, we talk about it because we've been trying to do this work.
Yeah.
But I think for somebody just fresh into kind of going through and looking at themselves and trying to become aware of why they are the way they are, it can be scary to kind of, approach those things.
Yep.
But like I said, it gets easier and easier the more you do it.
Yeah. And I think, one of the suggestions I usually have with clients is start with something benign. Like start with something, like if you wanted to practice this, like let's say I wanted to practice just voicing my opinion or something that I'm angry about, but maybe it's not as juicy or spicy.
Like it's just an everyday thing?
Yeah, it's just an everyday thing. It's not like something about my childhood or my closest relationship. Maybe it's just something that is really benign, like, something that upset you during the day and being able to just talk about it and maybe practice with things like that don't feel as like you're so attached to it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think the better you get at just navigating the small things, the better you get at being able to experiment with the bigger things, you know? And then you start to build some confidence in being able to feel anger, right? Or even feel sadness, because the depth of sadness, like sadness helps us slow down, you know, right? It helps us to connect with what we've lost, whether it's a person or it's a relationship, or even if it's a past version of ourselves. And embracing that sadness can lead to acceptance and even gratitude, and allowing us to make space for new experiences. But sometimes we're so afraid to feel any emotion that we oftentimes just try to numb from it or distract from it.
That's another thing. Well, drinking or
anything,
recreational drugs or whatever.
Binge watching.
Yeah.
Right. It's just something to check out.
Scrolling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the thing is that sadness or that anger or whatever it is an emotion. It's energy in motion. When you shut it down, it doesn't disappear.
Yeah.
Even if you numb it, it doesn't disappear. It just kind of waits for you. So the trick is to start processing that in the moment. And I think that's one of the things we both see with breath work, and why breath work is so valuable is like breath work allows you to build that bridge between the mind and the body, and it's all feeling.
Yeah, you're stimulating your autonomic nervous system.
You're going into your sympathetic state. You're
Forcing
being able to, kind of clean out a lot of these things that you haven't allowed yourself to feel. Right? So what if we didn't just wait for these big clean outs or big blow ups or sickness, illness?
But it requires a safe space to do that, because I've found that some people they apologize for just having a brief moment of vulnerability. I'm so sorry I did that. I put that on you. It's like they felt like they were emotionally dumping on me. And it's like, no, we're friends.
Yeah.
This is a space where I'm willing I want to hear, how dare you rob me of the opportunity to be here for you?
Well, think about how the culture has been, though. Listen, only positive stuff. This is what we're talking about.
We're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If your parents were not comfortable, listening.
Yeah, that's right. So if you grew up in a household where people didn't openly share emotions, then that would seem like
something you need to apologize for.
Zone. Yeah. If somebody's like, hey, listen, I got to tell you about this thing that's really bothering me. And that would just not be a place that they would feel comfortable at all. So trying to find ways to have people be more comfortable with that. Like I agree. I think starting with something small usually helps, because usually when that type of a phrase comes out, where I'm sorry, it's like, it's usually something really big.
Like there's shame attached to having
something to hide,
having feelings. There's shame attached to crying.
Especially, I mean, I don't know for women as much, but I can speak for myself, especially for men. It's like, what are you, what are you, weak-minded? Yeah. What are you, a baby? Yeah. What's wrong with you? Why are you crying?
There's no room for your sadness.
Yeah.
You know what but often for men, the only thing there is room for is anger.
Well, it's the only emotion that was cultivated and nurtured. You know, it was like, come on, kick his butt, do this. Come on. Don't let him do that to you. It was always, even, uncles would kind of antagonize cousins fighting or brothers, like there would be things where they were like, oh, let's see what happens. And they were really pushing us to exercise the emotion of anger.
Yeah.
But when it came to any kind of sadness, no.
We don't do that.
Even pain. Like I broke walk it off. Come on. Don't cry. You got to walk it off. Like, really? Like I can't just be here in this moment and feel what I'm feeling and let this process pass.
Yeah.
And I find myself a lot more, I find myself getting teary-eyed in TV shows. Because
would you hide it?
No, I used to.
Yeah.
I used to, totally.
Yeah.
But now it's just like, oh man, I'd wipe my tears like, wow, that was so powerful. But I actually feel like I enjoy things more fully.
Ah. Yeah.
Books, TV shows.
Well, you have like emotional availability.
Yeah, I'll watch like stuff like America's Got Talent and see somebody who, and you have some sort of affliction and then they're so talented. I'm like, how does this person push and persevere through this? And I get all teary eyed just because I kind of empathize with what they must be going through.
Yeah,
and it gives me the space to kind of grow that.
Yeah, and not be ashamed of it.
Ashamed of it. And that takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's a different culture than probably many of us were brought up in. That, it's okay to have emotion. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. You're not going to get stuck there especially if you allow yourself to feel those things and then let them pass, let them go.
Yeah.
But that's not really what we were taught.
No, I mean, we're not taught to express emotions. Just, men between men. I have friends now that very few, but there's a few friends who are kind of in touch. And at the end of our conversations, love you, bro. Yeah. And it's not a homosexual thing at all. It's just a love for another person. That would never happen growing up. I would never say, hey, love you, bro. Like they'd be like, what? They would say,
everybody's uncomfortable.
Everybody gets uncomfortable. But now that's something that I feel comfortable to say.
So this is really a way of building emotional resilience.
I think so.
Yeah. Being able to feel the full range of emotions, not just some that are acceptable, but all of them. Like we're here having the human experience. That includes having the full gamut of all emotion.
Positive and negative. Yeah.
Positive and negative. And being able to do that, I think it makes us easier it makes it easier for us to face discomfort, because without having to push it away.
What do you mean? Why? Why does it make it easier?
Because when you're able to navigate your feelings and it feel okay, you don't feel shamed for it. You're not trying to be sad and also feel ashamed.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm sad.
Yeah.
Or be angry and also feel ashamed because I'm angry. It's like, what if you're just able to feel sad and you could just kind of move into that discomfort of being sad or being angry or being whatever it is and then let it move, let it go.
Yeah. And use your tools.
Yeah.
Self-soothing tools to kind of move through the process.
I think it's about not pushing it away, not pushing away the emotion. And when we do that, imagine what, your relationships could look like, your friendships, your significant others. It's being able to process and feel your emotions and allow them to do the same or encourage them to do the same, emulate how that looks and create a safe space for the people around you to do that.
Yeah, so I think, we started with how I thought being woo-woo was, super positive and it was, but in actuality, what we do is, encourage people to deal with their emotions. And it's the exact opposite of toxic positivity. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually like,
it's undercover in a way.
Let's go into all the shadow stuff.
Well, if I seen the label of Serenity Cove, it'd be like, oh, serenity, but then we deal with a lot of hard things.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be.
How do you think you get to serenity?
Yeah.
I mean,
let that shit go.
Part of that is surrender,
Oh, part of it. I mean, shoot, all of it, I think.
Most of it.
Most of it is surrendering to your vulnerabilities.
Yeah. You got to let that shift go.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Yeah.
Start small, but start asking yourself, I want you to ask yourself, how does it make you feel when you see someone cry? How does it make you feel when you feel like you are going to cry or you are going to have an emotion that maybe doesn't feel acceptable to the people around you? What gets triggered in you? Are you okay with it? Or do you instantly try to shut it down, push it away? And starting to notice, because if you're doing that, you're holding stuff in. That holding stuff in leads to pain, chronic pain, anxiety, depression. And all of that is really, a lot of that is undigested, unprocessed emotion.
And it's so isolating.
Very isolating, very lonely. You can be in a room full of people and feel alone when you're trying to just kind of.
And there may be somebody in that room willing to hold space for you. But if you don't give them the chance, like I said, some people are, I'm so sorry that I let myself get to these emotions. Like, why would you say sorry for that? And that's I would say that's more common than somebody saying, thank you for holding space for me. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm having an emotion.
That's a more common response than thank you for holding space. And that's a sad culture, I think.
Yeah. And you know what? If you express your emotion and your so-called friend shut you down, or they just, made you feel bad about it, then maybe it's good that you found out right then that this probably isn't maybe a friendship you'd like to continue, or maybe there's more conversation that needs to be had about what you need.
Or they're just because I have friends that aren't capable of holding space, but I think they're genuinely good people. They're just in their own world in a sense.
What if you were the one to first example it?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lead by example.
Have you found that when you do that, lead by example, have you been surprised by how many people then open up to you?
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, a couple of years ago when I made a post, it was like an explosion of like, oh, man, I did not know that was going on with you and all these things. And I was like, well, yeah, I was holding a lot and everybody thought I had this perfect life.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways I do. But there was a lot of holding.
Yep.
Holding back, holding emotions, holding past experiences.
And I remember people reaching out to you and saying, hey, can I talk to you about this?
Yeah.
So
that was the beginning.
Yeah. And sometimes somebody just has to go first.
Yeah. And with physical things, I usually am.
Emotional things. You
I'm
got
learning
there.
to,
You're there.
That's something I've been trying to take from, that's something that I want of yours is the ability to go first with emotions, if that makes sense.
Oh, you're right there, bro.
I'm getting there. I'm getting better.
You're there. I'll be the judge of that.
All right. That's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them on a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.